District on Tuesday, July 19, 2022 at 6 p.m. The first item on the agenda is to approve and adopt the agenda. Are there any changes? No. We need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Rudy? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so item 2.1 or item 2 is open session. Do you need, okay, so this is attendance roll call. President Lopez Jones here. Treasurer Robert Cannon.
Here.
Trustee Maxfield.
Here.
Trustee Gonzalez.
Here.
Here, so if you can join me for the pledge of allegiance. So begin.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 2.3, district mission statement. We are a collaborative, culturally rich educational community where our rigorous and innovative curriculum prepares our students to be successful contributors to our global society. Before we move into item number 3, I want to officially welcome you. I think this is our first board meeting with our new superintendent. President, welcome.
Welcome.
Looking forward to working together. All right, item 3, information discussion. 3.1 is consideration of feasibility of a school improvement bond measure.
Sure. So first, we're going to have Director of Facilities, Chris Oakes, and Kelly Jorgensen of Van Pelt will give an update on the facilities master plan and our current funding. And Cynthia is handing out the presentation for each of you.
The mic's working very well. Anyway, so you can stand up here. There's a lot of numbers involved in this presentation, and Kelly Jurgensen is one of the team leads from Van Pelt Construction Services, and she has a really good handle on the program itself, and she was available to come up and speak, so I figured it'd be better to have her explain things and where we're at and where we're going to be.
All right, well, thank you, trustees and superintendent, for having me this evening. I appreciate it. What we wanted to go through today is first what we're calling phase 1, which is the current bond measure and the funding that we have available today, and then go through future funding that we would need to complete goals for our capital improvement program and potentially a bond program moving forward. So if you go to the second page in your packet, you can see our working implementation plan for the remaining funding for the capital improvement program that is underway right now. So that includes your current bond. It also includes fund balances for developer fees, for state funding that has been received, and balance in Fund 40, which is your other capital improvement fund. So these are the projects that are happening to date that have funding. I'm open to ask any questions if you have any before I move on to. I also have a sheet that goes over each of the projects and where they're at right now, but I do want to give an opportunity to ask questions. You can see that a couple of them are cross-funded from multiple funding sources, but the majority of them come from your bond measure. Just a reminder that right now there is $8.5 million yet to be sold in bonds. So we have $10 million that has been sold that is ready to use, and then another 8.5. One of the things that my firm helps the district with is cash flow planning. So as we go into the larger projects, like say in the third section there under the junior, senior high school, you'll see the building 1 science and CTE classroom. That's a bigger chunk of money, so we need to kind of forecast hiring those consultants and when we'll need the larger amount of money to pay the bills on the construction side. And then we work with the district to make sure the bond sale happens at the appropriate time. So right now we have funding to get started on all of these projects, but when we go into that last major project, we will need to do a final bond sale. Any questions? All right. So quick update on where we are progress-wise with the current projects. Right now during summer 2022, we are currently at the elementary school working at the art docent space, getting that underway, a former storage space that will now be dedicated to the art docent. We are expecting delivery pretty quickly of a second shade structure at the elementary school. And we are about to work on the water line repair at the elementary school too. There is an issue with the water line that we're going to get replaced. We are also converting the black box theater at the junior senior high school into a classroom. And we are working with AMS, who helps with network and data. And we are upgrading the network, working closely with IT on that one. That one is going to get started relatively soon as well. Start in the summer and then go into the fall. So that's the work that's underway on the physical construction side. And then what we are working on planning right now is the elementary school kinder playground replacement. So there is that strip of land that's right on the other side of the doors for the kinder area. And right now it's just sort of a strip of asphalt. It's not well utilized. So there's a plan in place to turn that into a nicer playground area for the little folks. And we are working closely with a consultant that helps us understand setbacks for the creek that's running right there to make sure that we're not in any danger of landslide or anything like that. And we are...
Let's pause real quick, just to explain that. The kinder playground replacement is just talking about the consultant we're working with is ESA, who helped us a few years back to repair that riverbank failure we had. So they know that they also did all the planning for the river, for the very short bridge project. So they know that area really well. So I'm really glad to have the time to take a look at it. And they'll be working with us in the future on figuring out how we can safely put playground in.
Really helps us to make sure we don't throw good money after bad. So we are working on that plan. At the same time, we've collected proposals from landscape architects who would be working on that project. So we're evaluating those while we're getting our ducks in a row with the riverbank. Additionally, we will be relocating a portable that sits in that space over there by Kinder right now to a new location on campus so that we can open things up. And we are had our first meeting with kitchen staff so we can talk about modernizing the elementary school kitchen. Additionally, we will be starting initial planning for the science and CTE classrooms at the junior and senior high school. And like I said before, that is kind of your bigger project. So we have the cash flow now to hire design consultants and start that planning process. And then we are also working on a parking lot resurfacing project for the following summer. And those are the projects that are underway with the current bond. Lots of good stuff happening, but not enough. So if you go to page 3 of the packet, I have worked with Chris and with Audra to talk about the potential projects. This also was discussed with Erin before she left. For phase 2, a potential phase 2 of your capital improvement program. What you can look at here is a list of projects that we flagged and then total funding amounts for each campus or for district-wide and bond expenses. Within those, we allocate to particular projects, but we started with just big figure budget numbers. And then what you can see at the bottom is our total program. So that includes phase 1 and phase 2. And you can see if we wanted to do all of these important projects that we would be running a deficit of $40 million. So that's where future funding comes in.
So I do want to point out on here that one of the things that was not necessarily in the facilities master plan, but in the conversations I've had with multiple people since we started and reviewed the separate field modernization, that if you look on this page under the Calistoga Junior Senior High School block, there's a line item for field modernization. Now, it's not the $17 million that was presented a couple years ago, but it is definitely a line item that will allow us to start to do work out on the fields so that we can put them in a better place for our students.
All right, any questions on the phase 2 projects?
Thank you very much. So then, as she stated, the overall for phase 2, for between the 2 programs is, for phase 1 and phase 2 is almost $61 million. And we're $40.2 million short. So that's why we have reached out to It's just in my, yeah, it's just in my back pocket. So that's why we've done work with ISOM Advisors, and so Greg is back to follow up on his last presentation from last month, where he said he was going to go out and survey. And I believe he has, you have your hand up, right? Great. And I am very fortunate that I worked with Greg in my previous district, so I already have a solid relationship with him.
2 bonds and 1 parcel tax?
That's right. And a beautiful building.
But who's counting?
Just before, I'm sorry, something started, can that other trustees talk about when was the last time the district did this sort of big modernization?
Well, we passed the bond in 2010.
Right, so I mean, I guess before that.
Oh, that was in the 90s.
95.
Yeah. Oh,
It's
okay.
maybe 85, yeah.
95.
95,
So
yeah.
it's not like we're doing this every 10 years.
Oh, God.
No. But that's a great question, because when you go out to the community, that's.
Yeah, that's what I feel like
Absolutely.
is, yeah, looking at it as a resident there, I can see, yeah, I'm seeing like they need to get upgraded, but we're doing this.
Yeah.
Thinking of it.
Well, and it's been 12 years.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
fact, well, you just got that money.
Right.
Geez, 12 years ago. I mean, it doesn't seem that.
I mean, it takes time for the projects to be completed. It's going to happen overnight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I assume they have to complete it. Yeah, 12 years later, still working on stuff.
Yeah, based on the stuff I've seen from the past, I was surprised it took so long to do another bond. It just, some of the pictures of the elementary school, and random like plywood and 2x4 walls, and just, it really was like, I was really shocked that Scout Stove at one point, so I'm glad that, it came through.
Well, if it's good enough for Rudy when he was here, it's good.
Good.
Yeah.
All right, so in front of you guys have the survey results. I don't know if you guys have seen them or not. Well, don't jump ahead. Don't steal them.
So excited.
I'm excited to share them with you. Okay, so last time I was here, we talked about the process of the survey, how it all works, bond amounts, all this fun stuff. And I think a week or 2 after, we went into the field. Did anybody get called? Interesting. So, methodology, page 2, 3,800 registered voters. When I went through this before, I said, you have to assume on how many homes there are, how many of those homes have phone numbers, and how many of those phone numbers actually work, and then the ones that do work, how many actually take the survey. So at the bottom, we got a hold of 169 households, which represents 190 individuals, which is actually a little bit higher than I thought it was going to be, based off of surveys I've been doing statewide right now. So that represents 13% of district voters with a working phone number, called 3 straight days and nights. And now I'm going to give you the results. Page 3. We gave them a little softball question just so people can kind of feel, warm and fuzzy about taking the survey. She said, would you say that education at the schools in your community is headed in the right direction or the wrong direction? 32% said right, 53% I have no idea, 50% said wrong direction. You'll see, so at the end of the survey, which is this next one, we say, hey, for statistical purposes, do you have any children or have you ever had any children or grandchildren that have ever attended Calistoga schools? 70% of the people that took the survey have 0 connection.
Yeah, I can say that, we have a large senior community.
This is pretty, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This is a high number. 70% of people taking the survey with 0 connection.
Yeah.
0. Okay? So you'll see why some people have no idea. Okay? So just remember that. 15% of the people that took it currently have PIDs, 60% yeah in the past, 70% have no connections whatsoever, which is why it's shocking on page 4. Yes,
Did you do the survey in Spanish or only in English?
this was only in English. Typically, people who are actually going to take a phone survey are English speaking, or if they do speak Spanish, they actually speak English as well, who are going to take a survey like this.
Yeah, but like the Hispanics, it's like what 85% of the students are Hispanic in school, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So we actually took a look at how many registered voters are Hispanic as well, and that number of registered is very low. And they actually have it on how many are registered as Hispanic and Spanish only, and it's very small.
Yeah, it's about 360. The last time I saw. It's very small.
Okay, so on page 4, we then just kind of hit them right in the gut and we say, well, at this time, the district's looking to do a school bond, make some improvements. Let me read you the proposed language. So we actually, that yellow box is read to the person taking the survey, as confusing as that sounds. And the reason we do this is because when a lot of times people vote, they'll be voting in the actual, when they get their absentee ballot, or they go to the polls, and this is what they're going to read, and this is what they vote off of. Okay, so we actually read it, which is more confusing than just reading it themselves. $30 million, 1.6 annually, 2.5 cents per $100, blah, 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 blah. Would you vote yes or would you vote no? And 70% of the voters said yes. Knowing that 70% have no connections, which is shocking, okay? 17% said no, 1.8 were leaning no. These are voters that said, well, I'm undecided, and then the survey person said, well, are you undecided leaning no, or are you undecided leaning yes? So, well, 2% said undecided leaning no, 8% straight undecided, 3% leaning yes. So we only need 55%, not 2/3, only 55% in order to be successful. So we are way above what we need thus far.
Is there any sort of potential bias of calling someone and saying, hey, would you vote for the school? Which it seems like people feel like they should say yes, and it doesn't matter to them if they lie.
I have given survey results to certain communities where the numbers were 49% yes. So I had to deliver bad news to them.
Okay. So it's not like people feel like they need to say yes.
No, not at all. I'm actually surprised if it was me and I had I don't know who's calling me, this person, I don't want to sound like a jerk, I'll say it. Shockingly, when it comes to these surveys, that's not the case. This is truly gut reaction. And I think people are excited to take something that says we're calling on behalf of the Calistoga Unified, as opposed to I'm calling on behalf of the
IRS.
Yeah, I'm looking to buy a home in your neighborhood, and none of that stuff. So this is legit. Okay, so then we start with projects. They actually ranked for most popular to least popular project, starting on page 5. So we said, well, would you be more likely or less likely to vote for the bond if it was going to be used for number 1, project constructor, technical education, classrooms and facilities? Number 1, over 80% said yes on, which is shocking because I'll bet you the vast majority of people who took the survey have no idea what a career technical education classroom is. But it sounds cool, and they've heard that buzzword, so that sells, right? Second one, increased student access to computers and modern technology. What is this, 2005? But that tells you who you're speaking to. So if you're speaking to an older group, this makes sense to senior citizens. Oh yeah, computers and modern technology, great, over 80%. Improved technology infrastructure, right? Oh sure, 80%, actually less. When you mention the word computers, you get more support. Interesting. Next group of projects, replace temporary portals with permanent classrooms, super strong. Improve playgrounds and outdoor learning areas. Shockingly, that was higher than I thought it could be. Construct and renovate classrooms, restrooms, school facilities, including kitchens, multi-purpose rooms, /gymnasiums. Totally just, like an all-encompassing project, over 70%. Install fencing, security cameras, and new door locks for equipped campus safety. I said, Aaron, this one's going to tank. But I said, let's just see how bad it is. Well, apparently your voters like this project as well. Over 70%. I think probably security cameras is a big selling point, right?
Especially after what just happened.
Correct. Fencing, security cameras, door locks, everyone's thinking of what's going on. But even then, this project normally doesn't do that well. So now, we say, well, hey, there's a cost to this. Bonds are not free money. If you knew that the proposed measure of cost of property is $60 per 100,000 assessed value per year, would you vote yes or would you vote no? 60% said yes. 20% no, 5% I don't know, 7% it doesn't make a difference. What about $50? 62% yes, 7% no difference, 5% don't. What are those people? It's irrelevant to them. 26%. So by dropping it by $10, you only gain 2 percentage points. Okay? What about $40? You know, 2 Andrew Jacksons. Right? That's how they kind of think of it a little bit. 67%, 24. The don't knows, we lost 2 of them, and there's no difference, straight to the yes game. Okay? And if you guys recall, the reason we asked is you don't need $60 to generate, you know, how much is needed. You don't need $60 to generate what we were even showing there. I think you only need $35, but we ask these questions to see, are you a tax rate sensitive community or not? Okay? And we know that based off of the following question. Now that you've heard more information about facilities, the projects, and cost, would you vote yes or would you vote no? Anything look weird to you? It's exactly the same. So what happened is, you know, I put the first question on the right-hand side so you can kind of see.
But our lean yes went up.
Your lean yes went up by 2 people, I believe.
We'll take it.
Your undecideds and your lean no's went to the no camp, a bunch of them. But your yes vote stayed exactly the same, which tells me that your community is totally fine with doing a bond measure. If your results would have gone down, let's say to 65%, that tells me you are a tax rate sensitive community right now. So you got to be careful when talking about taxes. Okay? If your results would have gone up, which I'm shocking I see sometimes after the cost, that tells us, hey, your community loves projects and they want to see this more than anything right now. And they're willing to pay. Or they say, you know, actually, that's all that it's going to cost me? Yeah, sure, count me in. Okay? The fact that you stay the same tells me that your community is just fine doing a bond measure. Taxes don't bother them. They want to see the projects, or else the 70% wouldn't have been 70, would have been, you know, 60%. Okay? People say, well, what about the 2010 bond? Most people aren't aware of the 2010 bond anymore. People's memories, you know, unless there's some baggage that happened, but there's not, or else the results would have shown a low percent. As I said, because we've done tons of surveys for school districts that did bonds in 2010, 2014, 2016, and even 2018. And some of the districts in 2014, it went from, you know, 55% down to 49%. We've seen one that go from 63% down to 58%. Okay? You guys are exactly the same. I feel totally confident with your community doing a bond measure this November, which is why my conclusions and recommendations on page 10. I say people like the projects. 70% voter support. It's one of the highest I've seen this year. Support of tax rates tested. It's the highest that I've seen all year for a $60 tax rate. And we're doing close to 50 school bonds in the year 2022. Okay? So my recommendation, there's a resolution on the ballot tonight. I think it's, you know, say, Greg, what do you think? I'd say full speed ahead. I think you guys are going to win. You know, I would say if the election were today, you'd pass at 70%. There's a lot of things that can happen between now and election day, good and bad. Okay? Even with that, even if stuff were bad, even if the economy started going worse than what people are saying is, even if there's another COVID pandemic, I still believe that you're still going to win, based off of the sort of results being decided. They look very similar to Mendocino Unified, which, you know, if you guys are aware of Mendocino on the coast, their study was like 70 to 72%. They finished at 70.2%. Okay. I don't think you guys are asking the community for too much money. You know, the tax rate totally manageable for a unified school district. That is my presentation. I'm open to any questions you guys may have.
So, from results to the actual vote, you know, how do your results and your surveys compare to what actually ends up happening?
So, my results for my surveys are almost every time within the margin of error, plus or minus 5%. With the exception, if you have, just make sure there's nobody in here. With the exception if you have something called organized opposition. Organized opposition is where you have a local group will spend $10,000, put signs up around town saying vote no, we'll send out mailers, we'll do flyers, we'll do all this stuff. That's where you have problems. Okay? If you have no organized opposition, I spoke to the superintendent, I said, I don't think you need to even lift a finger running a campaign. In fact, my recommendation would be to do absolutely nothing.
Because we did a lot of work.
That's one of my questions for you. In 2010, we were coming out of a recession.
Still in the middle of it in 2010.
Right, well, and it was, we worked really, really hard
Yep.
to pass this bond. And, the convincing was just, I remember those, convincing people to help us out. And now, with the talks out there about the economy going into another recession, what are your thoughts on that? And, just, is this the right time?
So, yeah, is it the right time? There's never the right time, ever. Right? There's always going to be something going on. I take a look at, the 5 districts that I had. I did 5 bonds in June. I did Mill Valley, $194 million for Mill Valley to build a middle school. Like, worst project ever for $194 million. Like, can't you build like 5 middle schools for that amount? It was crazy. But what's interesting was they did a survey 2 years ago and it came in at 50%. 2 years later, they did the survey, in fall of 21, and it was like 62%. Okay, just for whatever reason, COVID kind of scared people a little bit. And the thing passed at 61%. San Rafael Elementary, San Rafael High, they did bonds in 2015. Both of them passed close to 2/3. We did another one in Hillsborough. They did a bond in 2005. Passed at 62%, 130 million. And then we did a bond in Boron, California. I think I mentioned this one last time. Boron, California, where they did a bond in 2016. And they did one, and I said, you don't need to do anything. They didn't lift a finger. No mail, no phone banks, no precinct blocks, no anything. And they got 62% after doing a bond in 2016. Okay? I did the parcel tax in Kenwood, 80%. Okay? I did a bond in Fresno County, west side on Highway 5. We did absolutely nothing. Except for I had one person reach out to all her family members who have all these low propensity voters. I said, she literally has like 50 cousins there, and then none of them vote. And I said, just go get them to go vote. This bond passed, the highest bond in the history of California, just passed in June at 92%. And an extremely, I don't want to say poor community, but a very poor community, 92%. Nothing. So I feel pretty strongly that right now this is a guaranteed winner today. Can I guarantee that organized opposition is going to happen? No, but I've dealt with it. I did the bond in Pope Valley, where they had opposition. Conveniently, signs disappeared in the middle of the night that said vote no. I didn't do anything. But I think that Pope Valley's a district, right? Had opposition there a little bit, had some grumpy people, but we didn't do anything there. Because I said, sometimes the more that you talk about it, you actually turn people off. It's kind of different than it was 12 years when you did your bond in 2010. Because I've done the bonds in Cloverdale and Healdsburg, Alexander Valley. I did the bond in Westside, Geyserville. I did all these kind of wine country bonds. And what I have come to find out is the more that you try to talk about it, you kind of turn people off. Because here's the thing, if you believe survey data, which I do, you're at 70% right now. If you believe this, there's no reason, I'm not making the call, this is a random call center who's talking to people in your town who have no connections to your schools. Imagine if they spoke to people that do have connections to your schools, it could be higher. Okay? So, as I said, they're calling just random people with nothing, they're not selling. This isn't an overly selling survey like, hey, would you vote for this if you knew that it was going to bring in millions of dollars to the local kids and all these great things you're going to have? you could have cooked the survey if you wanted to make the results be even higher, okay? But I always say, if you believe the survey data, you don't get extra credit, you don't get extra bond money by getting 75%. So if you want to kill yourselves to get 75%, then you don't need to do anything. Right?
Okay, so I asked you this question when I was in Bayshore, and I'm gonna ask you this question now. If we do nothing, because you know that I'm not a do-nothing kind of person. If we do nothing and it doesn't pass, what happens?
Yeah.
What are our options after that?
You just have to go in 2024
We have to wait till 2024. Because it has to be during.
for a 55%, yeah. If this was a 2/3 election, I'd be saying, okay, we got to do a little bit extra, because that gives you 3% cushion. You have 15% cushion right now.
Okay.
That doesn't include the lean yeses. And if you recall, in Bayshore in 2014, was it 2014 or 2012? 2014,
2014.
we killed ourselves. I brought my little 5-year-old, we're walking the streets of Daly City, she's wearing her cool sunglasses, guaranteed got us a couple extra votes. Did phone banks, did mail, did all this fundraising, which is awful
But
to
it was
do.
also our very first
It was
one.
one of your, yeah, it's your first bond,
Yes.
82%. Highest of the year. Okay? Killed ourselves. Then we did the bond in 2016 or 18.
We all could have used the extra steps. We're okay.
So the next bond we did was in 2016 or 2018? 2018.
2018.
We did the survey, and I said, Audra, nothing has changed. In fact, we asked the same questions that we asked in 2014 to see if voters even knew a difference between the two. No difference. And I said, so what do you want to do? I said, we can kill ourselves again, but we're just wasting everybody's time. Or we can just let this thing rip, and it's going to pass. We let it rip. We did absolutely nothing. What did it pass at? 80%?
Oh, you got that 2% there.
If that would have guaranteed an extra couple $1 million in bond dollars, yeah, we would have fought for it. But how much easier was it on everybody to just 80% as opposed to 82%?
What was your survey result?
80%.
Okay.
Like, I think it was like you were within 0.3% of that survey at that time. I mean, everything's different. It's not complete, science that way. But as I said, even if you got 60%, does anybody care about getting 60%? I mean, do we have that much pride where,
Pride, really.
Alexander, as I said, Alexander Valley, right? We did pretty much absolutely nothing in Alexander Valley. Because we knew we were dealing with those, there's some like wine organization where we have all the wineries together. We knew that there were some snarky guys. And I said, listen, Matt Marino, superintendent, I said, less is more when it comes to wine country. Because the last thing you want to do is wake up a sleeping bear.
So the only downside is, do we have to pay to put it on the ballot?
You have to pay to put on the ballot, which you're already doing board elections this November.
Yeah.
And so it gets added into everything else that's on the statewide ballot, And I'm not suggesting absolutely, like, if you want to do something, we can do send out a mailer with 2 weeks to go. We can send a letter to teachers and staff, if you guys want. I'm saying no phone banks, no precinct blocks, no fundraising over $2,000. Because if you fundraise over $2,000, you actually have to be an official campaign committee, that PPC forms, all this stuff. Keep it $1,999 if we want to do something. But my recommendation, as I said, is do nothing unless you have to.
So do you monitor it?
Do I pay attention to what's going on?
Yeah.
Of course.
Okay, you know what? I think we need to do.
Yes, 100%.
What does that mean? How do you monitor it?
Oh, I read the local papers, I Google stuff, I go on random Facebook people, random tours, I ask superintendent, hey, what's going on? What's the word on the street? It's all quiet on the western front. Perfect, that's what I wanted to hear.
So like, a lot of us, we talk to Rotary and Seroptimus and did parent groups and all that type of stuff. I like that answer.
As I said, I do nothing for a lot of school districts.
And we pay you for it.
You pay me to win. That sounded weird. I do nothing else. I don't do there's some people that surely follow like campaigns from, early 2000s, which is, oh, we gotta do this, and I tested it. I tested it in Sonoma County was my first test trial, to where I had 5 school districts all on the ballot at the same time in Sonoma County. I had Wright School District, I had Sebastopol, I had Old Adobe in Petaluma, so I had Petaluma, West County, I think I had Cloverdale, so I had like 5 districts. And all the surveys were like 62% or above. And I said, okay, I believe that I don't have to really do anything. So I said, I'm gonna see. So in Wright School District, we did no walks, we did phone banks and mail. This district, we did walks, no phone banks, no mail. So I just changed it all up. And I had one school district where we did nothing. And what happened? They all won, and they're all within 1 percentage point of what the survey said. I didn't tell these districts that information,
Right.
but I realized that you don't need to kill yourselves anymore. And so I did this big study of all the surveys that we've done to final results. As I said, we've done, I don't know, maybe 200 surveys and bonds in the last 10 years. Okay, more than anybody in the state. And I tracked it. I said, hey, when does running a campaign actually help? And the only time that it's actually helped is if your survey comes in and you're under 60%. So like a good campaign helps out with a couple percentage points. If you have organized opposition, it has a 100% chance of losing. 100%. You will lose if you have organized opposition, and you can't control it. Okay?
How would that happen?
How would it happen?
How often does that happen?
I mean, for me, once every 4 years, you just run some just buzzsaw, like, where did this person come from? And the reason that we do the survey first, I always say, hey, did anybody call the district office complaining about the survey? Did anybody come to the board meeting? Is anyone checking board agendas to see are they upset? And if the answer is no, that means, hey, for the most part, people kind of don't care that much. Until maybe, later on when they get around, what the heck? There's a bond measure on the ballot? So that's when I generally check in. Right when absentee ballots hit, I say, hey, what's the word on the street? Nothing? No signs or nothing? Okay, good. 5 days later, hey, what's going on? Anything going on? Nothing? 5 more days. Hey, what's going on? Anything going on? And if you can get through that first 4 to 3, weeks prior to election day, you're safe. And you made it.
Of course, if you're like my wife, she doesn't vote.
Exactly. So it's like, I work in Winters on the other side of you guys. Winters did a bond in 14, 16, 18, and 20. 14, yeah. 4 bonds in the span of 6 years. Okay? They love their bonds over in Winters. 14, we killed ourselves. Did everything. This is a district that hadn't done anything for a while. They wanted to make sure. I said, I don't think you guys really need to do that much, but we'll do it if you want to. 16, I said, you don't really need to do anything. But we feel like we need to. Fine. Let's just send out mail. No more precinct walks, no more phone banks. Send out mail. Survey results were exactly what the survey said. 2018 said, we don't have to do anything. Okay, great. Finished like 2 percentage points below what the survey said. Now, the times are different. 2020, survey. Hey, we did it in November. November's like November elections are really nice because everyone comes up to vote. As opposed to June elections with low turnout rate to force people to come out. So November election comes out, November 2020, we did absolutely nothing again. Passed once again, 63%, 64%. They finished all 4 bonds were within 63, I think, to 69%. So I believe it. I believe the science and the anecdotal evidence that only I have.
So again, when do you have to get the 2/3?
Off years.
Off years.
So a Prop 39 election is when it's a regularly scheduled election date. So like, some school board meetings or school board elections used to be in off years back in the days.
Yeah.
So that's a regularly scheduled date. You could jump on that and do a Prop 39, 55%.
Oh, so that's why it's changed then, because now all school board elections have to happen during the years.
Yeah, they changed that, because they used to have you'd have LA County, these huge districts where only 10% of people are voting.
Right.
So that's just not fair,
Okay.
right? Or if somehow the state decided to do an election, like the recall of Newsom last year, you could have jumped on that ballot and did a 55% election. But who wants to be on that ballot? So generally speaking, the greatest election date of all time are presidential general elections. 90% of school bonds pass, no matter what. The next best election date generally is November gubernatorial, which is this one. Then it goes presidential primaries, and then it goes gubernatorial primaries, are normally the worst. Well, then special statewide elections are the worst. So we're jumping on a great election date. I'll stop talking.
And the only downside in terms of cost, or I guess any downside is that we have to wait 2 more years to try to get.
That's the down, yeah,
And we just have to wait, our project timeline would get impacted.
Yes.
correct.
Okay.
And then you get more expensive anyway, right?
Exactly.
Yes. So are we ready then?
Yeah.
So then,
Any more questions or? No? All right, so we move into the action items. The protocol for action items includes a staff presentation, questions from the board, public input, deliberation by the board, and voting by the board.
Sorry, I have one more question.
She's a term.
Like, do most school districts, they have to have bonds? It's not like most school districts have 20 million laying around.
every school
Yeah.
district has to have a bond. So that's one of the downfalls of California that most people don't understand in terms of funding for schools. So besides the fact that California schools are not funded at an adequate rate, we're the
Yeah.
#1 economy in the United States of America, and we are like the 48, 49 funded school programs across the nation. But that money is meant to pay for programming. It's not meant to pay for facilities. And so there's no money that comes unless you do a bond or you do set aside your own deferred maintenance. So any school district that needs to legitimately modernize and/or build new facilities has to go out for a bond.
So if the city can't pass a bond, they cannot do any.
Well, so, you know, the average ADA that we get, we get a basic aid district. We get a lot of money per kid, but none of that can be sloughed off for building.
It could, because it's your general fund, but it's never enough to where you could actually, so for example, the state says that Calistoga, for the students that we serve, we should be funding our district at just about $11 million. And so if our tax base came in at 11 or below, they would bridge that, and that's what we would use. So we're obviously above that. But that above dollar amount is meant to still improve the services that we provide for our students. So that's why we can have smaller class sizes. That's why we can have instructional aids in every classroom. That's why we can do all of the great things that we do in terms of instructional programming versus setting aside those monies. Because we could take, but that's $7 million that really isn't, we need 40 million. And so we're still not going to get to where we need to get, and you're then taking it away from services that we can provide for students.
Say that again?
We have to improve the quality of the services that we provide. That's our most important thing.
And then we can also just add, because this might come up, that you'll hear, well, why doesn't the state give you money? And as Auditor said, well, yeah, they give us money for teachers and for books and for stuff inside the classroom. But in 2010 or 2011, when Jerry Brown was the governor, he actually punted pretty much the state program. Because the state used to give way more money to schools, and he says, we're out of the business. School districts, you're on your own, for the most part, to pass your own measure. We'll maybe give you matching funds if you qualify. You know, there's a 60-40, the 50-50 match or whatever. For the most part, the state of California said, school districts, you're on your own. So that's when people say, well, why does the state give us money? Well, we have, number one, we have to pass our own measure first. And that's if they, we qualify for it.
Yeah, the short story is you have to spend money to get money in the state. So if you have no money as a school district for capital improvement, the state won't give you any more because it's a matching system. So the deck is rigged.
And then to add to that, so for example, for us, if I remember reviewing, we qualify for maybe close to $3 million
Yeah.
between the two different schools, or the two different campuses. And even if when we go after that money, we're not gonna see that money for 5 years. So for my previous district, we qualified, we ended up getting $2.7 million. Our project was $36 million. And we were already open, serving our kids for a year and a half before we even saw those funds. So it's never really, it's meant to really, you end up having to backfill.
Like I do remember us having to chase down some money back when we did the first, 2010 thing, talking about that, because things changed. It's another reason why we were doing that. I think we had to sell it better back then. Does that make sense?
Good.
That was a long time ago.
Many moons.
Remember much. Okay, we're on to resolution 22-21, calling the school bond election.
So the item is resolution 22-23-1. State law requires the Board of Trustees to order a school district bond election, and we have to order it in time on behalf of the district, including publishing all required notices. So the district is, staff is recommending that we move forward with placing a bond on the November ballot. And we have to submit it by July 27th
To Napa County.
to Napa County. Well, and to, because it's.
Sonoma County is August 8th, but we'll just turn it in at the same time if you want.
Sonoma County's what?
August 8th.
August 8th.
So
or
each
12th.
county gets to decide when to do
Yeah,
it.
because we have.
So since we cover both counties, we need to submit the resolution to both counties.
Okay, so I entertain a motion.
Second.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
And this is not a roll call. So the motion carries. Let us go.
I didn't hear how you did it.
I said yes.
Oh, make sure.
I said yes.
I'm the same.
That's why I asked for it, if it was, but anyway, all right, so item 5.1, adjourn meeting, and that is favorite.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.